Hello, friends. I know I'm just an average guy telling creepy stories, but if you like them and get the scare you're craving for, please leave a like and subscribe. Enjoy the stories. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the boredom, the kind that sinks into your bones when you've been staring at the same four walls for too long. Maybe it was the way the internet felt like it was shrinking, every site a sanitized echo of the last, every post a recycled thought. Or maybe it was just me, restless, chasing something I couldn't name. Whatever it was, I found myself downloading Tor that night, my laptop screen casting a sickly glow across my bedroom. The browser installed with a quiet hum, and I sat there, heart thumping a little too hard, knowing I was about to step into something I didn't fully understand. The dark web wasn't some grand mystery to me. I'd heard the stories, urban legends swapped in late-night chats, half-whispered warnings about sites that sold drugs, weapons, or worse. I wasn't looking for any of that. I wasn't some thrill seeker trying to score illegal stuff or play hacker. I just wanted to see it for myself, to peel back the curtain and look at the internet's underbelly. I told myself it was curiosity, nothing more. A quick peek, then I'd close the browser and go back to my life. That's what I thought anyway. The Tor browser opened to a blank page, its interface cold and bare. I'd read enough to know I needed a starting point, so I pulled up a forum I'd found on the surface web, a list of hidden wikis with .onion links. Most of the links were dead, or they led to pages that looked like they hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. Grainy text, broken images, and cryptic menus. I clicked through a few, feeling a mix of disappointment and relief. It was all so mundane, just clunky websites for crypto scams or sketchy marketplaces. Nothing scary, nothing real. I was about to give up when I found a link buried in a comment thread, a string of random characters that didn't look like much. The comment just said, "Don't stay long." I clicked it anyway. The page loaded slowly, the progress bar crawling like it was pulling something heavy from the depths of the internet. When it finally appeared, it wasn't like the others. The screen was black, with a single line of white text at the top. "Welcome to the gallery." Below it, a grid of thumbnails, each one too small to make out. My cursor hovered over the first one, and my stomach twisted. Something about the site felt wrong, like the air in the room had gotten heavier. I clicked. The image filled the screen, and I froze. It was a photo of a room, dimly lit, with concrete walls and a rusted metal chair bolted to the floor. In the chair was a person, or what was left of one. Their face was gone, not blurred or censored, but gone, like someone had carved it away, leaving a wet, red hollow where features should have been. The body was slumped, arms tied behind the chair with thick ropes that bit into the skin, leaving raw, oozing welts. Blood pooled on the floor, dark and viscous, reflecting the faint light from an unseen source. I couldn't look away, not because I wanted to see, but because my brain couldn't process it. It wasn't fake. I'd seen enough gore in movies to know the difference. This was real, and it was wrong. I closed the tab, my hands shaking. But the image stayed burned into my mind. I opened another link from the wiki, telling myself it was a mistake, a one-off. The next site was worse. A live stream, grainy and stuttering, showed a figure in a hooded jacket standing over a table. On the table was a person, bound and gagged, their eyes wide with terror. The figure held a knife, its blade catching the light as they moved it slowly across the person's chest, not cutting, not yet, just dragging it along the skin. The person's muffled screams came through my speakers, distorted and raw, and I slammed my laptop shut. I sat there in the dark, my breath shallow, the silence of my room pressing against me. I told myself to stop, to delete Tor and forget it, but I didn't. I couldn't. It was like the images had hooked into me, pulling me back. I opened the laptop again, my fingers moving before I could think. I went back to the gallery, clicking through more thumbnails. Each one was worse than the last. Bodies twisted in ways they shouldn't be, limbs severed and arranged like grotesque art, faces frozen in screams that no one would ever hear. Some images had text overlays, simple phrases like "Subject 47" or "Completed." Others had timestamps, recent ones, too recent. I felt sick, but I kept clicking, like I was possessed, like I needed to know how deep it went. Then I found the forum. It was linked at the bottom of the gallery. A single word. Discuss. The page loaded into a bare-bones chat room, No avatars, no usernames, just numbers. User 672, user 193, user 405. The messages were short, clinical, like they were reviewing a product. Subject 52 was sloppy, too much blood. Need better lighting for 53. Requesting access to live feed. My skin crawled as I scrolled, realizing these weren't just viewers. They were participants, or at least they wanted to be. One message caught my eye. New viewer detected. Welcome, 892. My heart stopped. That was me. They knew I was there. I didn't type anything, didn't move. The chat kept going. More messages popping up. 892. Thoughts on 47? 892. You watching the feed? I closed the browser, yanked the power cord from my laptop, and sat there staring at the blank screen. My room felt too small, the shadows too dark. I told myself it was nothing, just code, just a site tracking its users. But the number stuck with me. 892. They'd seen me. They'd named me. The next day I tried to act normal. I went to work, smiled at coworkers, ate lunch like nothing was wrong. But my mind kept drifting back to the gallery, to the images, to that number. I hadn't slept, not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faceless body in the chair, the knife glinting over skin. By the time I got home, I was a mess, pacing my apartment, checking the locks on my doors. I told myself I was being paranoid, that no one could find me through a random Tor site. I'd used a VPN, hadn't I? I was safe. I had to be, but I wasn't. That night I got an email, not on my main account, not even on the burner I'd set up for Tor. It was in my work email, the one I never shared. The subject was blank, and the sender was just a string of numbers. The message was one line. 892, you didn't say goodbye. Attached was an image, a screenshot of my laptop screen from the night before, showing the gallery open, my cursor hovering over a thumbnail. My room was visible in the background, my desk, my chair, the corner of my bed. They'd been watching me through my webcam. I ripped the tape off my desk drawer, covered the camera, and unplugged every device in my apartment. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't sleep that night, just sat on my couch with a kitchen knife, listening to every creak in the building. I kept telling myself it was a prank, a hack, some script kiddie messing with me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The dark web wasn't just a place you visited. It was a place that followed you. The next morning I reinstalled Tor. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could find answers, figure out who they were, how they'd found me. Or maybe I was just drawn back, like a moth to a flame. I went straight to the forum and the messages were waiting. 892, you left too soon. 892, we liked your reaction. 892, want to join the next one? I didn't respond, but I scrolled, desperate for something, anything, that would explain what I'd stumbled into. That's when I saw it, a new thread titled Viewer Participation. The first post was simple. 892 has been selected. Prep begins tomorrow. I slammed the laptop shut again, my pulse hammering in my ears. Selected. Prep. The words looped in my mind, each one sharper than the last. I didn't know what they meant, but I could feel the weight of them, like a noose tightening around my neck. I wanted to run, to delete everything, to burn my laptop and move to another country. But I didn't. I just sat there staring at the closed lid, knowing I'd opened a door I couldn't close. The dark web wasn't just a place. It was a trap, and I was already caught. I didn't touch my laptop for 2 days. It sat on my desk, closed, unplugged, like a bomb I was afraid to disturb. I kept the blinds drawn, the lights low, and checked the locks on my doors every hour. Sleep was a lost cause. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that screenshot. My own room reflected back at me, proof that someone somewhere had been watching. My work email was silent, no new messages from the string of numbers, but that didn't calm me. If anything, the quiet felt worse, like the pause before a predator strikes. I couldn't shake the word selected, or the way prep begins tomorrow had burrowed into my brain, sharp and cold as a blade. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Hackers did this kind of thing all the time, right? Scare tactics, phishing, messing with people for kicks. But the images from the gallery weren't a prank. The faceless body in the chair, the knife dragging across skin, the blood pooling on concrete, those weren't staged. I'd seen enough death in my life, enough newsreels and crime shows to know the difference between fake and real. The dark web wasn't just a playground for trolls. It was a graveyard, and I'd wandered into it like an idiot. By the third day, I couldn't stand it anymore. The not knowing was worse than the fear. I had to go back to figure out what selected meant, who these people were, and how they'd gotten into my life. I taped over every camera in my apartment, laptop, phone, even the smart TV I barely used. I set up a new VPN, layered it with Tor, and used a neighbor's Wi-Fi I'd cracked into months ago for something unrelated. If they were watching, I wasn't going to make it easy. My hands were clammy as I opened the laptop, the Tor browser loading with that same sluggish weight, like it was pulling me down with it. I went straight to the forum, half expecting it to be gone, a dead link or a 404 error. But it was there, the same black screen, the same numbered users chatting in their cold, clipped way. The thread about me, 892, was still active, but it had grown. Dozens of new posts, all time-stamped over the last 2 days. 892's offline, typical newbie. Cam feed was weak, need better access. Prep on schedule, location confirmed. My stomach lurched. Location. They weren't just talking about my IP address or some vague digital footprint. They knew where I was. My apartment, my city, maybe even my street. I scrolled further, my breath catching at a new post. 892's profile complete, ready for Phase 1. Below it was a file attachment labeled 892dossier.pdf. I hesitated, my cursor hovering over the download button. Every instinct screamed not to click it, to shut it all down and run. But I had to know. I downloaded the file, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The PDF opened and my blood ran cold. It was a dossier, all right, about me. My full name, my address, my workplace, my phone number. There were photos. Me walking to my car, me at the coffee shop I went to every morning, me sitting on my couch, taken through my window from the street. Pages of details followed, my daily routine, my gym schedule, even the brand of cereal I bought. The last page was a grainy image of me at my desk, the laptop screen glowing with the gallery open. My face was circled in red, with a single word typed beside it. Target. I don't remember closing the file. I don't remember shutting the laptop. The next thing I knew, I was in my bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, trying not to throw up. They knew everything. Not just my digital life, but my real one. They'd been watching me, following me, for who knows how long. The word target burned behind my eyes, and I couldn't stop seeing that chair, the ropes, the blood. Was that what Phase 1 meant? Was I next? I didn't leave my apartment that day. I called in sick to work, my voice shaking as I lied about a stomach bug. I unplugged every device, even the router, and shoved my laptop under my bed like that would somehow protect me. I kept the knife from my kitchen drawer on the table, its blade catching the dim light from the lamp. Every noise outside, every car passing, every neighbor's door slamming made me jump. I kept checking my phone, expecting another email, another message, but nothing came. Just silence, thick and suffocating. That night, I couldn't stand the waiting anymore. I had to do something, anything, to feel like I wasn't just sitting there waiting to die. I pulled the laptop out, set it up on the kitchen table, and opened Tor again. I went back to the forum, my hands trembling as I typed my first message. Who are you? What do you want? I hit send before I could overthink it, and the message appeared in the chat, tagged with user 892. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the replies started flooding in. 892, you're awake. Took you long enough? Curious one, aren't you? The messages came fast, too many to read at once. Some were taunting, others clinical, like I was an experiment they were observing. One user, 405, posted, "You saw the dossier. You know what's next." Another, 672, added, "Phase 1 is simple. You run, we watch." I typed back, my fingers clumsy, "Leave me alone. I'm not part of this." The response was immediate. From a new user, 001. "You clicked the link. You're part of it now." I slammed the laptop shut again, my breath coming in short gasps. Run. They wanted me to run. But where? To the police? What would I say? That I'd stumbled onto a dark website and now some faceless group was stalking me? I had no proof, nothing tangible except a PDF I couldn't show anyone without admitting I'd been on tour in the first place. And if they had my address, my routines, my everything, where could I go that they wouldn't find me? I didn't sleep that night either. I sat on the couch, knife in hand, staring at the door. Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Not an email, not a text. A notification from an app I didn't remember installing. The icon was blank, just a black square. When I opened it, it was a live feed, grainy and dark, showing a street I recognized instantly. It was mine. The camera panned slowly, past the parked cars, past the streetlight flickering at the corner, until it stopped on my building. My window. The blinds were cracked just enough to show the glow of my lamp inside. The feed cut to black and text appeared, 892, we see you. I dropped the phone, my hands shaking so bad I could barely pick it up again. I turned off the lamp, plunging the apartment into darkness, and crawled to the window, peering through the blinds. The street was empty, or so it seemed. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, but I couldn't tell if they were real or if my mind was breaking under the strain. I stayed there, crouched by the window, until the sun started to rise, painting the sky a dull gray. I knew I couldn't stay. They weren't just watching anymore, they were closing in. The dossier, the live feed, the messages. It was all a game to them, and I was the prey. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with clothes, cash, and the knife. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to move. The forum's words echoed in my head. You run, we watch. I didn't want to play their game, but I didn't have a choice. I opened the door, checked the hallway, and stepped out, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. The dark web wasn't just a place anymore. It was a shadow, and it was following me. I left my apartment with nothing but the backpack slung over my shoulder, the weight of the knife inside it pressing against my spine. The hallway was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. Every step echoed too loud, the creak of the floorboards like a scream in the silence. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, avoiding the cameras I knew were in there, though I wasn't sure it mattered. If they could hack my webcam, they could probably see me anywhere. The street outside was gray, the early morning light barely cutting through the fog. I kept my hood up, head down, and walked fast, not looking back at my building. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, that every car parked along the curb hid a figure with a camera, or worse. I didn't have a plan, not really. I just knew I couldn't stay still. The dossier, the live feed, the messages, they were all proof that these people, whoever they were, weren't just playing a game. They were hunting me. You run, we watch, they'd said, and I could feel their eyes on me even now, like 1,000 needles pricking my skin. I headed for the bus station, figuring a crowded place might give me cover, a chance to blend in. The streets were starting to wake up, delivery trucks rumbling past, joggers with earbuds oblivious to the world. I envied them, their normalcy, their ignorance. They didn't know what was out there, what I'd seen. The bus station was a concrete maze, all flickering lights and stale air. I bought a ticket to a city a few hours away, paying cash and keeping my face turned from the ticket counter's camera. The clerk barely looked at me, her eyes glazed from the early shift. I sat on a bench in the corner, my backpack hugged to my chest, scanning every face in the crowd. A man in a gray jacket lingered too long by the vending machines, his hands in his pockets. A woman with a stroller kept glancing my way, her expression blank. Was I paranoid, or were they watching? I couldn't tell anymore. My phone stayed off, buried deep in my bag. I didn't trust it. Not after that app, that black square that had shown me my own street. The bus ride was a blur of nausea and dread. I took a seat in the back, near the emergency exit, and kept my hood up. The other passengers were a mix of tired commuters and drifters, none of them paying me any attention. Or so I thought. Halfway through the trip, a guy across the aisle started typing on his phone, his thumbs moving too fast, his eyes flicking toward me every few seconds. My pulse spiked, and I gripped the knife through the fabric of my bag. Was he one of them? User 405, user 672, or maybe 001, the one who'd said I was part of it now? I didn't wait to find out. When the bus stopped at a gas station, I slipped out the emergency exit and ran, ducking into the woods behind the lot. The trees swallowed me, their branches clawing at my face as I pushed deeper, the ground soft and uneven under my feet. I didn't stop until my lungs burned, until the sound of the highway was a distant hum. I crouched behind a tree, catching my breath, listening for footsteps, for anything. The forest was silent except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional bird. I told myself I was safe, that I'd lost them, but I didn't believe it. They'd found my work email, my apartment, my routine. A few trees weren't going to stop them. I stayed there until dark, too scared to move. The cold seeped into my bones and my stomach growled, but I didn't dare open my bag for the granola bar I'd packed. Every snap of a twig was a threat, every shadow a figure waiting to strike. I kept replaying the gallery in my mind, the chair, the ropes, the blood. Was that what they had planned for me? Was I Subject 53, the next thumbnail in their sick collection? The thought made my skin crawl, and I clutched the knife tighter, its handle slick with my sweat. When night fell, I forced myself to move. I couldn't stay in the woods forever, and I needed to know if they were still tracking me. I found a dirt road leading to a small town, just a cluster of gas stations and diners glowing under neon signs. I picked the dingiest one, a 24-hour place with cracked vinyl booths and a flickering open sign. I sat in the back, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and used the diner's Wi-Fi on a burner phone I'd bought at the bus station. I didn't want to log back into Tor, but I had to. I needed to know what they were saying, what Phase 1 meant. The forum loaded, and my heart sank. The thread about me had exploded. Hundreds of posts now, some with photos. One showed the bus I'd been on, taken from outside, my silhouette visible through the window. Another was a grainy shot of the gas station lot, time-stamped just hours ago. They'd been there, right behind me. The messages were worse. 892's moving fast, good sport. Phase 1 progressing, cam drones deployed. Betting 892 cracks before Phase 2. I scrolled, my hands shaking, until I saw a new post from user 001. 892, you're making this fun. Keep running. I didn't realize I was crying until the waitress asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about a breakup and paid for the coffee, leaving before she could press me. Outside, the air was thick with the smell of diesel and rain. I scanned the parking lot, the street, the rooftops. Cam drones. That's what they'd said. Were they watching me right now? Some tiny machine buzzing above, feeding my every move to the forum? I pulled my hood tighter and started walking, sticking to the shadows, avoiding streetlights. The town was small, but it had a motel, a run-down place with a vacancy sign that buzzed like a dying insect. I paid cash for a room, gave a fake name, and locked myself inside. The room smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke, the walls stained yellow from years of neglect. I checked the windows, the bathroom, even under the bed, looking for cameras, microphones, anything. Nothing. But that didn't mean I was safe. I sat on the floor back against the wall and opened the burner phone again. I couldn't stop myself. I went back to the forum. A new post was pinned at the top. Live feed 892's hideout. My blood froze. I clicked the link, and there it was. A grainy stream of the motel parking lot, my room's window visible, the curtains I'd drawn glowing faintly from the room's lamp. The camera angle shifted, zooming in, and I saw myself, just a shadow through the fabric, sitting against the wall. I threw the phone across the room, its screen cracking as it hit the floor. My breath came in ragged gasps, my vision blurring. They were here. Not just tracking me, not just watching. They were here. I grabbed the knife, my hand shaking so bad I nearly dropped it, and crept to the window, peering through a slit in the curtains. The parking lot was empty, the street quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. But I knew better. They were out there, waiting, their drones or cameras or whatever else they had trained on me. I was their entertainment, their sport, and I was running out of places to hide. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with the knife in my lap, listening for any sound. A car door, a footstep, a drone's faint buzz. Dawn came slow, the light creeping through the curtains like an unwelcome guest. I had to move again, had to keep running. But where? They'd found me on the bus, in the woods, at the motel. No matter where I went, they were there, their eyes everywhere, their messages taunting me. Keep running, they'd said, and I hated how much I was obeying them, how much I was playing their game. But what else could I do? I packed my bag, checked the parking lot one last time, and slipped out the door, my heart pounding as I stepped into the open, knowing they were watching, knowing they were closer than ever. The motel's parking lot was still empty as I slipped out, the morning air sharp with the bite of early frost. My breath clouded in front of me, and I kept my hood low, the knife tucked into my sleeve, its cold metal a small comfort against my skin. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. The forum's words, "Cam drones deployed, keep running," looped in my head, each syllable a hammer against my nerves. They were watching, always watching, and every step I took felt like I was dancing for them, a puppet jerking on their strings. The burner phone was still in my bag, its cracked screen a reminder of last night's panic. I didn't dare turn it on, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away either. It was my only link to them, to whatever they were planning next. I stuck to back streets, avoiding main roads and their traffic cameras. The town was small, barely more than a gas station and a few diners, but it felt like a labyrinth, every corner hiding a potential threat. A delivery van idled too long at a stop sign, its driver glancing my way. A woman walking her dog seemed to pause, her head tilted like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. My pulse raced with every glance, every sound. Were they part of it? User 405, User 672, or just random people caught in my paranoia? I couldn't tell anymore. The line between fear and reality was blurring, and I was losing myself in it. I needed a plan, something better than running blind. I found a public library on the edge of town, a squat brick building with fogged-up windows and a sign that read, "Free Wi-Fi." It was risky, but I needed information. About the dark web, about tracking, about how to disappear. I slipped inside, the smell of old books and dust hitting me as I scanned the room. A few retirees read newspapers. A kid tapped at a computer in the corner. No one looked at me twice. I chose a terminal in the back, farthest from the librarian's desk, and hunched over the keyboard, my hood still up. I didn't log into Tor. That was a death trap now. Instead, I searched the surface web for anything about dark web tracking, hacking, or forums like the one I'd found. Most of what came up was useless. Clickbait articles about the scary dark web or Reddit threads full of half-baked theories. But one post, buried in a cybersecurity forum, caught my eye. It was about viewer participation sites, places where users didn't just watch but were drawn in, marked, and hunted for sport. The post mentioned no names, no links, but the description matched the gallery too well. Live feeds, dossiers, numbered users. The author claimed these groups used advanced tracking, IP leaks, malware embedded in downloads, even physical surveillance. Once they tag you, the post said, they don't stop. Running makes it worse. My stomach twisted. The dossier. I downloaded it without thinking, clicked it like an idiot. Had it installed something on my laptop? Was that how they'd gotten my webcam, my email, my life? I glanced around the library, half expecting to see a drone hovering outside the window or a numbered user sitting at the next terminal. Nothing. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the kid clicking away at his game. I kept reading, my hands shaking as I scrolled. The post ended with a warning. If you're reading this and you've been tagged, don't go online. Don't use your devices. They're in deeper than you think. Too late for that. I'd already gone back to the forum, already used the burner phone. I wiped the browser history, cleared the cache, and logged off, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I left the library fast, head down, and headed for the nearest pawn shop. I needed cash, a new phone, something clean they couldn't trace. The shop was grimy, its shelves cluttered with old guitars and dusty electronics. I sold the burner phone for a few bucks, bought a cheap flip phone with cash, and walked out, feeling the weight of eyes on my back even though the street was empty. I didn't know where to go next. The city from the bus ticket was still an option, but they'd found me on the bus once. A train? Too many cameras. A car? I didn't have one, and stealing was too risky. I settled on hitchhiking, figuring it was unpredictable, harder to track. I walked to the highway, thumb out, and got picked up by a trucker hauling produce to a town 100 miles west. He was chatty, grizzled, with a beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in years. I lied about my name, said I was visiting family. He didn't ask questions, just rambled about the weather and gas prices. I nodded along, my eyes scanning the road behind us, waiting for a black van or a drone to appear in the rearview mirror. The trucker dropped me off at a rest stop just before dusk, the sky bruised purple and orange. I thanked him and watched his rig disappear, then found a bench near the restrooms, out of sight from the main road. My hands were numb from the cold, my stomach empty except for the granola bar I'd finally eaten. I needed to think, to figure out how to stay ahead of them. But my mind kept circling back to the forum, to the live feed of my motel window, to the dossier with my face circled in red. They weren't just tracking me digitally. They were physical, real, close. I pulled out the flip phone, tempted to call someone, anyone, but who? My friends wouldn't believe me. The police would laugh or arrest me for poking around the dark web. I was alone. That's when I heard it. A faint buzz, like a mosquito but sharper, mechanical. I froze, my eyes darting to the sky. Nothing at first, just clouds and the last sliver of sunlight. Then I saw it. A small black shape, no bigger than a bird, hovering above the rest stop's parking lot. A drone. Its lens glinted, catching the light, and I knew it was watching me. My heart lurched, and I ducked behind the bench, crawling toward the restrooms, my backpack scraping the gravel. The buzz followed, steady, relentless. I slipped inside the men's room, the door slamming behind me, and pressed myself against the tiled wall, my breath ragged. The restroom was dim, the fluorescent light flickering like it was about to die. I listened, waiting for the buzz to fade. It didn't. It grew louder, closer, until it sounded like the drone was right outside the door. My hand tightened around the knife, its blade catching the faint light. I didn't know if a knife could do anything against a drone, against them, but it was all I had. The door creaked open, and I held my breath, expecting a figure in a hooded jacket, a knife of their own. Instead, a janitor shuffled in, mop in hand, oblivious to me. He muttered something about the mess and started cleaning, the drone's buzz fading as he worked. I didn't trust it. I waited until he left, then slipped out the back exit, sticking to the shadows of the rest stop's picnic area. The drone was gone, or so I thought, but I wasn't taking chances. I ran, cutting through a field toward a cluster of warehouses in the distance, their silhouettes looming against the darkening sky. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop until I was hidden behind a rusted shipping container, my back pressed against its cold metal. I checked the flip phone. No signal, no notifications, just a dead weight in my hand. I wanted to smash it, to cut myself off completely, but I couldn't. It was my lifeline, my only way to know what they were doing. I stayed there, crouched in the dark, until my legs cramped and the cold made my teeth chatter. I didn't know if I'd lost them, or if they were just waiting, toying with me. The forum's words haunted me. Good sport. Keep running. I wasn't a person to them, just a number, a target, a game. And the worst part? I was still playing. I didn't know how to stop. I pulled my backpack closer, the knife still in my sleeve, and started moving again, toward the warehouses, toward nowhere, knowing they were out there, watching, waiting for phase 2. The warehouses loomed like silent giants, their corrugated metal walls streaked with rust and grime. The air smelled of oil and damp earth, and the only sound was the distant hum of the highway, faint under the weight of the night. I moved between the buildings, sticking to the shadows, my sneakers crunching softly on gravel. The knife in my sleeve felt heavier now, its blade a constant reminder that I was one wrong move from needing it. My backpack dug into my shoulders, the straps cutting into my skin, but I didn't dare stop to adjust it. The drone's buzz was gone, but I didn't trust the silence. They were out there, user 405, user 672, user 001, watching, waiting, playing their game, and I was still running, still trapped in it. I found a gap in a chain-link fence and slipped through, my jacket snagging on the jagged metal. The warehouse yard was a maze of crates and abandoned machinery, rusted hulks half buried in weeds. I crouched behind a stack of rotting pallets, my breath shallow, scanning for any sign of movement. The sky was clear now, the stars sharp, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The live feed of my motel window, the dossier with my face circled in red, the drone at the rest stop. They weren't accidents. They were deliberate, coordinated, and closer than I wanted to admit. Phase 1 was about running, about fear. What the hell was Phase 2? I needed a moment to think, to breathe. But every second I stayed still felt like an invitation for them to find me. My flip phone was useless here, no signal, no Wi-Fi. But I pulled it out anyway, flipping it open to check for anything. A text, a notification, something. The screen was blank, its dim glow mocking me. I shoved it back in my pocket, my fingers brushing the knife's handle. I had to keep moving. But where? The warehouses wouldn't hide me forever, and every town, every city felt like a trap. They'd found me on the bus, in the motel, in the middle of nowhere. They were always one step ahead. I crept toward the nearest warehouse, its loading dock door half open, a black maw leading inside. I hesitated, the darkness inside thick and uninviting, but staying out here was worse. I slipped through the gap, the air turning colder, heavier, smelling of mold and something sharp, like chemicals. My eyes adjusted slowly, picking out shapes, crates, barrels, a forklift tipped on its side like a dead animal. I moved deeper, my footsteps echoing despite my efforts to stay quiet. Every sound felt like a beacon, screaming my location to whoever was listening. That's when I heard it. A low hum, not the drone's buzz, but something softer, almost human. A murmur, like voices muffled by distance. My heart stopped, and I dropped to a crouch behind a crate, gripping the knife so tight my knuckles ached. The sound was coming from deeper in the warehouse, faint but unmistakable. I strained to listen, picking out fragments of words. Signals clear. 892's close. My blood ran cold. They were here, not just watching through cameras or drones, but here in the same building, their voices carrying through the dark. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The voices grew louder, closer, accompanied by the scuff of boots on concrete. 2, maybe 3 people, their words clipped and professional like they were discussing a job. "Check the perimeter," one said, male, low and gravelly. "Feed's got him near the dock." My stomach lurched. Feed. They had a live feed on me right now. I scanned the ceiling, the walls, looking for the glint of a camera lens, but it was too dark to see anything. My mind raced. How? The phone was off. My laptop was back at the motel. I'd ditched everything traceable. Unless the backpack, the knife. Had they tagged something I was carrying? The thought hit me like a punch, but I couldn't stop to check, not with their footsteps closing in. I crawled toward a stack of barrels, my hands scraping the gritty floor. The voices were maybe 20 feet away now, around a corner, their flashlight beams cutting through the gloom. I pressed myself against the cold metal, my breath hitching as I tried to stay silent. The knife was out now, its blade trembling in my hand. I wasn't a fighter. I'd never even thrown a punch, but the thought of that chair, those ropes, the blood, made me grip it tighter. If they found me, I wasn't going down without a fight. "Signal's stronger here," the gravelly voice said, so close I could hear the rustle of his jacket. A second voice, higher, female, chimed in. "He's scared. You see his face on the last feed? Priceless." They laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl, not because it was cruel, but because it was casual, like they were chatting about a movie. I wanted to scream, to run, but I stayed frozen, my muscles screaming from the strain of holding still. The flashlight beam swept past my hiding spot, missing me by inches, and I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. They moved past, their voices fading as they headed toward the back of the warehouse. I waited, counting to 10, then 20, until I couldn't hear them anymore. My legs were shaking as I stood, my eyes darting to every shadow. I had to get out now before they doubled back. I crept toward the loading dock, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. That's when I saw it, a small black device, no bigger than a coin, stuck to the side of a crate. A camera, its lens glinting faintly, pointed right at me. I froze, my breath catching, and for a moment I swore I saw the lens adjust, focusing on my face. I ran. I didn't care about stealth anymore, didn't care about the noise. I bolted through the dock door, back into the night, my backpack bouncing against my spine. The warehouse yard blurred past, the fence tearing at my clothes as I scrambled through. I didn't stop until I was deep in the field beyond, the grass swallowing my footsteps, my lungs burning. I collapsed behind a tree, gasping, my hands shaking as I tore open my backpack. I dumped everything, clothes, granola bar, water bottle, knife, searching for anything that didn't belong. There, stitched into the lining, was another device, a tiny black chip with a blinking red light. A tracker. They'd been in my bag, maybe since the motel, maybe since the beginning. I ripped it out, crushing it under my heel, the plastic splintering into the dirt. My chest heaved, my vision swimming with panic. How many more were there? On my clothes, my shoes, my skin? I stripped off my jacket, checked every seam, every pocket, but found nothing. The knife went back in my sleeve, the only thing I trusted. I left the backpack, too scared to keep it, and started moving again, sticking to the field, away from roads, away from lights. The stars were my only guide, and even they felt like eyes, watching, judging. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was slipping away, warped by fear. I found a drainage ditch, its concrete walls slick with moss, and crawled inside, curling up in the dark. My body ached. My stomach was a knot of hunger and nausea, but I didn't care. I just wanted to disappear, to become nothing, to slip out of their game. But I couldn't. The forum's words echoed. Betting 892 cracks before Phase 2. I wasn't cracked yet, but I was close. So close I could feel my mind fraying, my sanity slipping like sand through my fingers. I don't know how long I stayed in the ditch, but eventually I heard it again. The buzz. Faint at first, then louder, closer. The drone was back, its hum cutting through the night like a scalpel. I pressed myself deeper into the concrete, praying the shadows would hide me. The buzz circled overhead, slow, deliberate, like a vulture waiting for me to die. I clutched the knife, my only defense, and waited, knowing they were out there, knowing they were coming, knowing I couldn't run forever. The drone's buzz was a blade in my skull, slicing through the silence of the drainage ditch where I crouched, my back pressed against the slimy concrete. The air was thick with the stench of stagnant water and rotting leaves, but I didn't dare move. The hum circled above, slow and deliberate, its mechanical whine taunting me. I gripped the knife, its handle slick with my sweat, and tried to make myself smaller, invisible, though I knew it was pointless. They'd found me in the motel, the warehouse, the field. Wherever I went, their eyes followed. The tracker I'd crushed was just one piece of their machine, and I was starting to realize it wasn't just tech. It was them, real and physical, closing in. My breath was shallow, each exhale a risk as the drone's buzz grew louder, then softer, then louder again, like it was searching, sweeping the ditch. I pictured its lens zooming in, my huddled form filling some dark web feed for user 405 or 001 to laugh at. Good sport, they'd called me. I wanted to scream, to throw the knife at the sky, but that would only give me away. Instead, I waited, my muscles screaming from the strain, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would crack my ribs. The buzz faded just for a moment, and I seized the chance, crawling along the ditch, my hands slipping in the muck, my knees scraping raw. The ditch ended at a culvert, a rusted grate half blocking the exit. I squeezed through, the metal tearing at my shirt, and stumbled into a stretch of overgrown scrubland. The drone was still out there. I could hear it, faint but persistent, like a predator catching my scent. I ran low, weaving through tall grass, my eyes scanning for cover. A cluster of abandoned trailers sat ahead, their windows shattered, their paint peeling like dead skin. I aimed for the nearest one, my legs burning, and dove inside, collapsing onto a floor littered with broken glass and rat droppings. The trailer was a tomb, dark and suffocating, the air heavy with mildew. I crawled to a corner, tucking myself behind a moldy mattress, and listened. The drone's hum was distant now, but I didn't trust it. They'd been steps behind me every time, their cameras and trackers always finding me. My clothes were soaked with sweat and ditch water, my skin crawling with the thought of more devices stitched into seams or hidden in my shoes. I checked again, frantically, running my hands over every inch of my jeans, my shirt, my socks. Nothing. But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me. What if they didn't need trackers anymore? What if they were close enough to smell me? I pulled the knife out, its blade catching the faint moonlight filtering through a cracked window. It felt useless now, a toy against whatever they had. Drones, cameras, people. I thought of the warehouse voices, the gravelly man, the woman's laugh. They weren't just faceless users on a forum. They were real, with boots and flashlights and plans. Phase 2, they'd said. What did that mean? The gallery's images flashed in my mind. The chair, the ropes, the faceless body. Was that Phase 2? Or was it something worse? Something they hadn't shown yet? A noise outside snapped me out of it. A crunch like a foot on gravel. My heart stopped, and I gripped the knife tighter, my eyes locked on the trailer's door. It hung ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. Another crunch, closer, deliberate. Not a drone this time. Someone was out there. I held my breath, my body rigid, as a shadow moved across the window, tall and thin, pausing like it knew I was inside. The knife trembled in my hand, useless against the dread pooling in my gut. The shadow shifted, and I heard a voice, low and muffled, but clear enough to make my blood freeze. 892's here. Check the trailer. I didn't think. I scrambled to the back of the trailer, finding a broken window just big enough to squeeze through. Glass cut into my palms as I hauled myself out, dropping into the grass with a thud. Footsteps were behind me now, heavy and fast, more than one set. I ran, the trailers blurring past, my lungs screaming for air. The drone's buzz was back, louder, joined by another, their hums overlapping like a swarm. I dove into the grass, rolling into a shallow ditch, and pressed myself flat, praying the darkness would swallow me. The footsteps stopped, maybe 20 feet away. I could hear them talking, their voices sharp and businesslike. "Feed's got movement," the woman said, her tone clipped. "He's close," a man answered, not the gravelly one from the warehouse, but someone new. "Flush him out. We're on schedule." My stomach twisted. Schedule. They weren't just chasing me, they were following a plan, a timeline. I pictured the form, the bets on when I'd crack, the live feed of my fear. This was their game, and I was the main event. The drones circled closer, their buzzes splitting the air. I crawled through the grass, my hands bleeding from the trailer's glass, my knees raw from the ditch. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move. The scrubland gave way to a dirt road, and beyond it, a strip of woods, dense and black. I sprinted for it, the drone's hums chasing me, the footsteps not far behind. Branches clawed at my face as I plunged into the trees, the darkness swallowing me whole. I kept running, tripping over roots, my breath ragged until I couldn't hear the drones anymore, only my own pulse thundering in my ears. I collapsed against a tree, my chest heaving, my hands sticky with blood and dirt. The woods were quiet, but it wasn't safe. It never was. I checked my clothes again, tore off my shoes, and threw them into the underbrush, half convinced they were tagged too. Barefoot, I moved deeper, the ground cold and sharp under my feet. I didn't know if I'd lost them or if they were just waiting, letting me think I'd escaped. The forum's words haunted me, betting 892 cracks before Phase 2. I wasn't cracked, not yet, but I could feel it coming, the weight of their eyes pressing me closer to the edge. Hours passed, or maybe less. Time was a blur, my mind fraying with every step. I found a stream, its water black under the moonlight, and washed the blood from my hands, the cold biting into my cuts. I drank, not caring if it was safe, my throat too dry to care. I sat there shivering, the knife still in my grip, and tried to think. I couldn't go to the police. They'd never believe me, and the group might have people there, watching, waiting. I couldn't go home, couldn't call anyone. I was alone, a number in their game, and they were everywhere. Then I heard it, a snap, sharp and close like a branch breaking under a boot. My head whipped around, my eyes straining in the dark. Nothing, just shadows and trees. But the air felt heavier, like the woods themselves were holding their breath. Another snap, closer, and then a light, faint but unmistakable, cutting through the trees. A flashlight. They were here. I scrambled to my feet, the knife raised, and ran again, deeper into the woods, my bare feet bleeding on rocks and roots. The light followed, its beam slicing through the dark, and I heard the woman's voice again, calm and cold. "He's moving. Stay on him." I didn't look back. I ran until my legs gave out, until I tripped and fell into a hollow, my body half buried in leaves. The light was gone, the voices silent, but the drones were back, their buzz faint but growing. I curled up, my breath hitching, the knife pressed against my chest. I couldn't outrun them, couldn't hide forever. Phase 2 was coming, whatever it was, and I was running out of time. They weren't just chasing me. They were herding me, driving me towards something I couldn't see, something worse than the chair, the ropes, the blood. And the worst part? I was still playing their game, still running, still giving them what they wanted. The hollow where I lay was damp, the leaves clinging to my skin like wet hands. My bare feet throbbed, cut and bruised from the rocks and roots, and the knife in my hand felt heavier, as if it knew it was useless against the machine closing in around me. The drone's buzz had faded again, but the silence wasn't a relief. It was a trap, a pause in their game to let me think I had a chance. The flashlight beam, the woman's voice, the footsteps, they were all real, not just shadows on a screen. They were here, in the woods, hunting me, and I was running out of places to hide. But something in me shifted, a spark of defiance flickering through the fear. I wasn't just a number, not just 892. I wasn't going to let them herd me into whatever phase 2 was. If I was going to survive, I had to stop running and start fighting back. I forced myself to move, my body protesting as I crawled out of the hollow, leaves and dirt sticking to my bloodied hands. The woods were pitch black, the moonlight barely penetrating the canopy, but I used the darkness to my advantage, moving low and slow, every step deliberate. My eyes darted to every shadow, every rustle, expecting a drone or a figure to emerge. The knife stayed in my hand, its blade my only anchor. I didn't know how to fight, didn't know how to disappear, but I knew I had to break their rules, disrupt their game. They wanted me to run, to panic, to crack. I wasn't going to give them that. I followed the stream I'd found earlier, its soft gurgle masking my footsteps. My plan, if you could call it that, was to find civilization, somewhere crowded, somewhere I could blend in and think. But first, I needed to shake them, to make them doubt their tech, their trackers, their feeds. I remembered the cybersecurity post. They're in deeper than you think. The tracker in my backpack, the camera in the warehouse. They weren't just watching me online. They were physical, organized, and close. But they weren't perfect. They'd missed me in the ditch, lost me in the trailer for a moment. They could make mistakes, and I had to exploit that. I reached a bend in the stream where the trees thinned, revealing a gravel road cutting through the woods. A rusted sign pointed to a town a few miles away, and I crouched, scanning the sky for drones, the road for headlights. Nothing. But I knew better than to trust the quiet. I tore strips from my shirt, wrapping my bleeding feet to muffle my steps and dull the pain. The fabric was soaked through in minutes, but it was better than leaving a trail of blood. I moved along the road's edge, staying in the shadows, my ears straining for any sound, a buzz, a footstep, a voice. That's when I saw the glint, a tiny flash in the trees like a lens catching the moonlight. Another camera, or maybe a drone perched on a branch. My heart lurched, but I didn't run. Instead, I crept closer, keeping low, using the underbrush for cover. The device was small, black, with a red light blinking faintly. I didn't touch it, didn't want to trigger anything, but I studied it, my mind racing. If I could disable it, maybe I could blind them, even for a moment. I picked up a rock, heavy and jagged, and hurled it with all my strength. The device shattered, its light winking out, and I bolted before I could hear if anyone noticed. The road led to a gas station, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. It was closed, the pumps dark, but a payphone stood in the corner of the lot, a relic I hadn't seen in years. I checked my pockets, still had a few coins from the pawn shop. My hands shook as I dialed a friend's number, someone I hadn't spoken to in months, someone they couldn't possibly know about. The line rang, and for a moment, I let myself hope. Then a click and a voice, not my friend's, but the woman's from the warehouse, cold and amused. 892, you're getting creative. The line went dead. I dropped the receiver, my knees buckling. They were in my phone calls now, in every corner of my life. I stumbled away from the payphone, my breath hitching, and ducked behind the gas station, my back against the cinderblock wall. The knife was out again, my hand trembling so bad I nearly dropped it. How? How were they everywhere? The answer hit me like a slap. They weren't just tracking devices. They had people, networks, maybe even insiders, phone companies, hackers, who knew how deep it went. I was fighting a machine I couldn't see, and it was crushing me. But I wasn't done. The gas station had a dumpster, its lid ajar, and I climbed inside, ignoring the stench of rotting food and motor oil. I buried myself in trash, pulling bags over me like a blanket, and waited. If they were watching, let them think I was gone. Let them search the woods or the road. Hours passed, my body numb from the cold, my mind racing with every sound outside. The wind, a distant car, the faint buzz of a drone. I stayed still, the knife clutched to my chest until the sky lightened, the first gray of dawn creeping through the dumpster's cracks. I climbed out, my clothes reeking, my cuts stinging from the filth. The gas station was still empty, but a pickup truck was parked across the street, its driver asleep at the wheel. I didn't think, just acted. I slipped across, checked the door, unlocked, and slid inside, hot wiring it with shaking hands, something I'd only seen in movies. The engine sputtered to life and I drove, keeping off the main roads, heading for the town on the sign. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, expecting headlights, drones, anything. Nothing followed, but I didn't believe it. They were there, always there. The town was small, a strip of fast food joints and a bus depot. I ditched the truck in an alley, wiping my prints off the wheel, and headed for the depot, my head down, my makeshift bandages unraveling from my feet. I bought a ticket with the last of my cash, picking a city at random, somewhere big, somewhere I could disappear. The bus was half empty, and I took a seat in the back, my hood up, the knife hidden in my sleeve. I didn't sleep, didn't relax, just watched the other passengers, the windows, the sky. Every face was a threat, every shadow a drone. The city was a sprawl of noise and light, a chaotic mess that felt safer than the woods. I blended into the crowds, moving through markets and subway stations, my eyes scanning for cameras, for anyone lingering too long. I found a homeless shelter, lied about my name, and got a bed for the night. The place was grim, smelling of sweat and despair, but it was crowded, anonymous. I lay on the cot, the knife under my pillow, and planned. They wanted me to run, to break. I wouldn't. I'd use the city, its chaos, its noise to hide. I'd find a library, a burner phone, something to trace their signals, to turn their game against them. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The forum's words still burned in my mind. Phase 2. The chair, the ropes, the blood. They were waiting, and I was only delaying the inevitable. As I lay there, the shelter's snores and coughs filling the air, I heard it again, a faint buzz just outside the window. I didn't look. I didn't need to. They were still watching, still waiting, and I was still their sport. But I wasn't cracked yet. I tightened my grip on the knife and closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to think, to plan, to find a way out of their game before it swallowed me whole. The shelter's cot creaked under me, the knife's handle digging into my palm as I lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The buzz outside the window had faded, but its echo lingered in my skull, a reminder that they were still out there. User 405, User 672, User 001, their drones, their cameras, their game. The city's hum filtered through the walls, a mix of car horns and distant sirens, but it didn't feel safe. Nowhere did. The shelter was just a pause, a fleeting moment to catch my breath before the chase resumed. I'd been running for days, maybe weeks. Time was a smeared mess, my mind fraying from exhaustion and fear. But I wasn't their sport anymore. I couldn't be. This had to end, and it had to end now. I slipped out of the shelter before dawn, the city still half asleep, its streets slick with early morning mist. My feet, wrapped in scavenged bandages, ached with every step, but I ignored the pain. The knife stayed in my sleeve, a constant weight, and I kept my hood low, blending into the crowd of early commuters and street cleaners. I'd decided on a plan, or at least the bones of one. They were tracking me, through devices, through people, through ways I couldn't fully grasp. But if they could find me, I could find them. I'd turn their game around, use their own tools against them. The city was my cover, its chaos, my shield. I just needed to be smarter, faster, before Phase 2 became my grave. I found a 24-hour internet cafe, a grimy hole in the wall with flickering monitors and a clerk who didn't care about ID. I paid cash for an hour, choosing a corner terminal where I could see the door. My hands shook as I opened Tor, the browser's familiar weight pulling me back into their world. I didn't go to the forum. Not yet. Instead, I searched for dark web marketplaces, places selling hacking tools, anything that could trace their signals or expose their network. Most of what I found was scams or dead links, but one site offered a packet sniffer, software that could monitor network traffic, even on Tor. It was risky. Downloading anything was how they'd gotten me before, but I didn't have a choice. I used a USB drive I'd bought from a pawn shop, clean and untraceable, and downloaded the tool. The cafe's clock ticked down as I worked, my eyes darting between the screen and the door. The sniffer was crude, but it could detect incoming connections, maybe even pinpoint their drones or cameras. I set it up, letting it run in the background, and logged into the forum, my heart pounding. The thread about me, 892, was still active, hundreds of new posts. "He's in the city now," one read. "Feed's spotty, but we've got eyes." Another, from user 01, "Phase 2 starts when he stops running." My stomach twisted, but I kept scrolling, looking for anything useful. A location, a name, a mistake. Then I saw it. A post with a map, a grainy screenshot of the city, a red dot blinking near the shelter. My current location, or close enough. They were tracking me in real time. The sniffer pinged, showing a connection from an unknown IP, bouncing through layers of encryption. I couldn't trace it fully, but it was enough to know they were close, maybe in the city, maybe watching from a van or a basement nearby. I copied the IP, my hands trembling, and cross-referenced it with a dark web search. It led to a server cluster, a physical location somewhere in the city's industrial district, about 10 miles away. A lead. A real one. I wiped the terminal, pocketed the USB, and left the cafe, my pulse racing. The industrial district was a risk. Too open, too empty, but it was my only shot. I took a subway, blending into the morning rush, my eyes scanning every face for signs of them. A man in a black coat lingered too long near the platform's edge, his hand in his pocket. A woman with earbuds glanced at me twice, her expression blank. I couldn't tell if they were part of it or if my paranoia was eating me alive. I got off 2 stops early, slipping through alleys to throw off any tail, and made my way to the district on foot. The industrial district was a sprawl of warehouses and factories, most abandoned, their windows boarded or shattered. The air smelled of rust and chemicals, and the streets were deserted except for the occasional truck. I found the address from the server trace. A squat, unmarked building with a chain-link fence and a single security camera at the gate. My heart sank. If this was their base, it was locked down, and I was walking into a trap. But I was done running. I had to end this, even if it killed me. I waited until dusk, hiding in a nearby alley, watching the building. No drones, no voices, just the hum of distant machinery. The camera at the gate swiveled, but it was predictable, following a pattern. I timed it, slipped through a gap in the fence, and crouched behind a dumpster, my knife ready. The building's side door was rusted but unlocked, and I eased it open, wincing at the creak. Inside was dark, the air thick with dust and the faint hum of electronics. I followed the sound, my footsteps silent, until I reached a basement stairwell, its door ajar. The basement was a maze of servers, their lights blinking like eyes in the gloom. A single monitor glowed at the far end, showing a live feed of me, standing in the basement, my face pale and hollow. My breath caught, but I didn't freeze. I moved fast, ripping cables from the servers, smashing the monitor with a crowbar I found on a table. Sparks flew, the hum dying, and for a moment, I thought I'd done it. Blinded them. Then I heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming down the stairs. I dove behind a server rack, knife in hand, as 2 figures entered. Hooded, faceless, their movements calm, like they'd expected me. 892, the woman's voice said, the same one from the warehouse, the payphone. "You found us." The man laughed, low and guttural. "Makes phase 2 easier." I didn't think, just acted. I lunged, slashing with the knife, catching the man's arm. He grunted, blood spraying, and I bolted for the stairs, their shouts echoing behind me. I ran through the building, out the side door, into the night. The fence was a blur as I climbed it, tearing my hands on the metal. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops, or maybe they were part of it too. I didn't stop to find out. I ran through alleys, over fences, until my lungs gave out and I collapsed in a vacant lot, hidden by weeds. The servers were down, the feed was dead. But I knew it wasn't over. They were still out there, maybe angrier now, maybe closer. Days later, I was in another city, another shelter. My name changed again. My appearance altered with scavenged clothes and a shaved head. I didn't touch the internet, didn't trust phones or cameras. The knife stayed with me, my only constant. I'd hurt them, maybe slowed them. but the forum's words still haunted me. You're part of it now. I'd escaped their base, their feed, but not their game. I could feel their eyes, even now, in every shadow, every stranger's glance. I wasn't running anymore, but I wasn't free. I'd never be free. Not until they were gone or I was. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.